Welcome back. I'm playing Warhammer 40,000 Gladius, and we are playing the Drukhari campaign on the Impossible setting, and we are on the last chapter trying to get a quest victory. So I think we just have to kill the rest of these units here, and then we will read the quest log to kind of get everything caught up, and I think that's going to bring this campaign to a close. So we'll see what we can end up doing here, and hopefully they don't bring the Tyranids or the Tau against me, because that would be bad. We've definitely seen that these heroes are also pretty good too. They do a shit ton of damage once you get them kitted out. Even before, actually, they were doing pretty decent, but you give them these combat drugs and all this other stuff just goes crazy and starts stacking, and we don't even have any relics to boost them yet either, so you've got a ton of influence, so you could just keep kitting them out if you had influence locations here. I mean, we only have 2 bases. Ideally, I'd like to get at least 3, and on multiplayer, 2 to 3 is usually a good number, and on multiplayer, sometimes you get like 4. That's even better. But we'll see if they keep spawning in these random units, because if not, then that suggests that this is the last of them. So. Looks like they're wanting to fight us. I think they're just kind of testing the water a little bit though. But yeah, all this stuff looks like Tyranid here. Well, actually, he doesn't really have much over here. Oh, I thought I had my executioner selected there. That's my bad. Let's do that. He wants to fight you so bad. Oh man, look at you guys getting your shots off. Alright, so he's down. You're here, Mr. Archon. Well, get as much of this healing going as we can, I guess. Let you hit there. Oh, bummer. Look at all this stuff that's up again that I didn't do. I don't really like what I'm doing here. I feel like I'm gonna just end up aggroing these guys to come fight me and make some bad decisions here. I don't think that's a part of his base yet. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these are the last of the units, which is good if that's true. I'm curious to know what the map looks like. I bet they're probably just in like a three-way battle over here, smashing into each other like crazy. I should also probably be like putting these guys in and out of the vehicles to get all those other bonuses, but since we're not really getting attacked, I don't think it's quite as essential at this point in time. Yeah, they just do not like it when I come over this way. Like, we don't want to deal with any of your shit. Get out of here. How am I doing for population here? So I gotta get some more buildings here, unfortunately. Alright, so we are gonna need some more population and loyalty. Put you here. You can attack there. You can attack here. And you can come here. I don't think that really did anything, but makes me feel better. I'm actually a little surprised. Alright, so this is going to be the last of the units that I have to kill since I did this. So let's look through our quest log here and see what we've got going on for the story here. So Chapter 1, Portrait of an Archon. Pink fleckled spittle mars the perfection of his lips. He is yelling in my face, enjoying the way I shrink back from the noise, tasting my scattered tears. A moment later he is composed again, settling himself on his chair. It groans and gurgles as an attending rack feeds it. One of the chair's eyes is blue. It is watching me. You see, says the Archon, continuing, you see, we simply had to visit Gladius Prime. So much anguish, so many of the herd tormented, in certain treasures like yourself. He pauses to inhale crimson vapor from a small skull carved with the dark cherubim. After all, the place was pandemonium. It took the subtle moves of a tactical genius surpassing even Vecht himself, I talk, of course, of myself, to recognize its potential to tip the billions into utter misery. It was unfortunate, then, that I brought the true-born Rakin with me, arrogant, sadistic, spoiled, a perfect tool. If he wasn't such a fool, the scowl distorts his whole face, he almost ruined everything. And we had to capture 4 outposts, which we did. As I entered the outpost, Rakin was busy with the captured Adeptus Arbites, intent on quite delightful torment involving Grok's gut and a needle. Reckon, I said, Draken, I must interrupt your fun. Do not ignore. I growled my next words. Theatrically, I admit, your Archon. He dropped the nail gun then, and dropped to his knees. My Archon, forgive me. Better. Now, we've spent rather a lot on this expedition. Must show something for it rapidly, lest my rivals decide they're better off in charge. Torment some chattels. A demonstration of force, perhaps? Destroy the Imperial stronghold, and we got 40 influence. Master, said Rakin to me, leaning on his dark lance. We were atop my raider barge, savoring the pain as our forces stormed the Imperial bastion. Could we not have used the existing webway portals? Why all this expense? First, never question me again, I smiled, lest you end up like them. Rakin glanced down at the grotesque hanging from the hooks of the craft's prow and nodded thoughtfully. Now, I said, a certain Lord of Access has taken an unwelcome interest in my well-being, and his minions have been watching for my presence in the real. So I've been avoiding the better-trodden paths for a century or 2. I frowned. An athletic figure was approaching rapidly, killing as she came. I could see her perfect sadistic smile from here. Perhaps I was not cautious enough. Chapter 2. Depths and Heights. An iron grip pushes my face into warm mercury. Under and out, my lungs ache, and when I scream, the liquid metal rushes in, oddly flavorless, as I choke to unconsciousness. When I come to, the Archon is wiping his hand on a filleted Voltan skin and smiling broadly at me. All that time raiding in real space. I need regular top-ups, you know. Where was I? Oh yes, the succubus. And then we ended up getting the Cabal stronghold, got the witches trained, and then we got 80 influence. The Inaged Grey Loxlove had led her witches to Gladius in a hope of defeating mighty foes. Yet she savored even more, telling me that my nemesis was on Gladius Prime. Whispers from Kamaras, she said. Your perfervid friend has followed us here, and the webway is sealed behind it. Who set that lovehorn whore on your tail, I wonder, she smirked. I routed? I'm not familiar with that word, and flipped away. The perfected lord, asked Rakin. Halfwit. Perfervid, I said. She who thirsts has found us, or rather her minion has, an oddly reasonable chaos type who's been bothering me for centuries. We should expect trouble. As if on cue, on the horizon, dust clouds, more humans keen to avenge their fallen kin. Expect, but rather more quickly than I anticipated. The perfervid was meddling already. In return for Loxlove's taunts, I let the witches handle them. Use combat drugs on one of your units and survive the invasion and kill all invaders, and then we got the racks for that. Surprisingly, for witches, there were many survivors. Unsurprisingly, my followers bickered and fought and poisoned and killed for their share. Rakin begged me for one of his own, but I handed mine to the homunculus. Arcantic? As I always say, never offend the ancient flesh sculptor unless you have to, especially if you can torment a minion at the same time. Ah, I can still taste his his injured pride, his rage, his frustration. Chapter 3. Our Perfect Friend. The Archon sips from the jewel-encrusted goblet that leans back on his chair. Its single eye looks at him, tears running from the blue iris. I was toying with the felled Astartes and had just cracked their fascinating subdermal layer when the vox on his helmet crackled out a honeyed Terran voice. "Are you there, Gythenius? Did you enjoy my present?" Of course. It was that blasted, perfervid. I leaned down and spoke into the vox. "Oh, perfervid. It was simply delightful. Sisters and Marines? Such a treat. We're tormenting them now." I absent-mindedly lashed the Marine with one of my agonizers as we talked. "My pleasure, darling. But don't take too long with them. I found some new aliens, ones I've not seen. Little blue things, well equipped, and with such a sweet screams. I'm sending them your way to soften you up. We'll visit later to get your soul for my prince. Farewell for now." The vox went dead. Like its owner, I noticed, hood-eyed, expired while distracted. His head rolled to the floor, and I picked it up. "Why not simply kill this upstart Monkai?" began Reckon. "Why let them manipulate us this way? First he sends Imperials, now Tau. I'll cut him off with a taste of my agonizer, leaving him whimpering pleasantly at my feet." "Hold your tongue," I said. We're under strength and unprepared for battle, either against the Tau or the forces of She Who Thirsts, and the perfervid means to feed all of our souls to the Slaanesh." As I gazed at the Marine's flayed skull, an idea formed. The Tau do have a flaw, though. Strike for the head. And then this is where we ended up killing the Ethereal. So we had to get the Dark Foundry, to get the Raiders going, and then get Ethereal, and then we got 100 ore. Decapitation. Figurative and literal, I said, tossing the withered blue head to Raken. Round up the other Tau for transport to Kamara. Now what have you missed? He looked around, panicked. "Lord, I am sorry. Oh, we were observed." On the far crest overlooking the butchered Tau compound, he saw a glint. "Rangers. The Eldari here? Your chance to impress me. Make a deal with them. Defeat the Eldari camp, and then we got this ultra wideband Auspex, which gives you the ability to not trigger Overwatch with your heroes, which is definitely good." "Arrogant fool," I yelled at Reckon, lashing him. He sobbed and writhed, as much for my pleasure as from his pain. I meant to make a deal with them, not deal with them. As much as I take joy in humiliation of our own kin, we need them to unseal the webway gates so we can leave. I passed the agonizer to Arcanic. "Patch up this fool while I deal with the remaining Craftworld scum. They will demand more now that we have killed their people." I looked at Reckon. His healing. It can hurt. Chapter 4. The Way of All Flesh. The Archon rests his exquisite jaw on his noble fist and sighs deeply. The perfervid's message had ceased, which I felt a slight frisson of sadness at. One so enjoys torment, whether giving or receiving. Hellion scouts report that he was chasing down another prize amongst the humans, a living saint, these Slaanesh, so fickle in their delights. So to the Eldari camp, beside a dormant gate of ornate wraith bone, where you and I became acquainted for the first time. You in full seer garb, with your perfect smile, behind you aspect warriors, an exarch poised, and an ancient farseer casting ruins. You spoke. "The arrogant Monkais have meddled with the great devourer," you told me. "Our farseer is near the crystal sleep. Yet she sees terrible events will befall the craft world should this strain leave the planet. Thanks to your forces, we are now too weak to tackle it. We must eliminate it, then we can all return home. You dismiss me like a mere rack. And that's when I started making plans for you. The Archon the Archon caresses my chin with a bladed finger, and I feel blood begin to drip. He turns on his heel and walks to the window. Anyway, those beasts without a hive mind. Easy prey, I thought. Little did I know how determined they were. And then this is where we ended up killing the Tyrannid camp, I believe. Simply destroying the creatures themselves was not enough. The foolish Monkais who had meddled with them still knew their secrets. At least they'd make good workers for Kamara. Destroy, and then we attacked the Admech. And then we got Archon's Inspection, increases the output of buildings, but then I still had to research it, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. Having completed your tasks, I returned to your encampment, eager to see you again. I was planning a delightful betrayal to defeat your warriors and spirit you all back to my flesh pits in Kamara, to use this to rise to command of my cabal. Little did I know what awaited me. The Confessions of the Ascended. The Archon is standing now, gazing out at a tall window at a dark beauty of Kamara's impossible spires. He continues talking. All seemed well on our approach as I swept down upon your camp with my raiding forces silenced from all sides so that none might escape. Then I noticed that the tableau was frozen, the Eldari figures impaled, drained, you yourself absent. Even the webway gate was darkened and cased with black stone. The Archon turned from the window, gesticulating with his goblet, dark liquid spilling across the floor. A moment of horrible realization struck me, but it was too late. Stepping from the corrupted gate, the Perfervid had come, and he had ascended. Instead of the elegant marine who had pursued me for centuries, now there stood a demon prince, massive yet limber. Yet his voice was still refined, a drawl of that of an ancient Terran noble. Thinius, your kin are sadly consumed, for which the Prince of Pleasures richly rewarded me, and I made his perfect trap just for you, for our final consummation. The warp lingered around him as he strode forward, tendrils of the Noctilith gate pulling at his back. I am no fool, so I fled, whilst he tore apart my raiders. Our only hope was to bring down the gate and send him back to the warp, and that's when we had to kill the prince, and we got the Duskblade. O Gyriniath, sang the Perfervid as he faded back to the gateway, a mere reprieve from our affection. Yet soon my Hellions reported that you still lived, my dear. I sent Reckon to fetch you, in hope that you could open the webway as promised. Forgetting that idiot's bloodthirstiness towards your kind, I must apologize for the carnage. I would have brought all of you here to suffer together. And then we had to fight the camps, and then we got preferred enemy, and we got increases accuracy when we fight them, which actually could have been nice, because the Eldar would have been one of the major forces that we'd have to fight against. And then it says, I will never tire of dead Eldari, even against my orders, but just a handful were left alive, you, a Farseer, and an Exarch. I left Reckon to be chastised by the homunculus Arcanic yet again, whilst you were brought to my chambers. And then Chapter 6, Ascent and Fall. I am no world singer, you said to me, horse. I had not yet touched you, though your torments had already been lengthy. But there is Wraithbone here, as in the Crone or Exodite worlds. You know what you told me then, of the ritual of the young prince, the deceiver's death at Cain's hand, of how the demon had compromised your access to the webway, of how the Necrons had claimed the Avatar's chambers. I listened to Reckon's delicious shrieks as the homunculus worked on him, and a plan came to mind. Visit the highlighted tile and secure the perimeter. Remember the sweet moments when we stood outside the Avatar's chamber, you and the Farseer voices still raw from screaming struck up a Battleheim, and my incubi guards joining in. The Drakon and Exarchs were here too, chained together. Reckon, I said, smiling innocently. Head in there, would you? I pointed to the rust-red doors. Archon, he gasped. That would be certain death. What have I... You and the seer spread some sweet-smelling gunk on the You and the seer spread some sweet-smelling gunk on the two of them and began the carving of ruins. Oh my boy, I may affect a certain Effite? Effete? Dissolution? I'm not sure what that... Man, they're using all sorts of words I'm not familiar with. But I have survived Kamara for centuries. I know your idiot role is an act, and I know you hate me and want to replace me, and I know that you told the perfervid where to find me. Now, either you go in there and die, or die out here, slowly. Do you remember his face? As his mask fell, horror and anger raged across his face. He moved towards me, and the incubi about us raised their knaves. He stopped. Well played, Archon. Father, your rivals would have given me your place. I hope Slaanesh takes all to consume your soul. He strode calmly into the chamber, the exarch following, carrying the soon Dele. The doors shut behind them. I was proud of him. In that moment he was a true Drukhari, but my fellow Archons plotting so openly, that was troubling. Then an age of your incessant chanting and the terrible cry. Slowly the doors opened and out strode the Avatar. Kala Menchikane, the incubi knelt to it, worshipful. You did not see, but as it passed me, it turned its head. I could see no recognition in its metal eyes, only molten hatred. Survive the invasion and keep the Avatar Kane alive, and that'll give us victory. Alright, very good. Now we'll kill the Land Raider, and this should trigger the last area. Nice. Alright, so now we see the Eldari. Oh no, it's the sanctimonious cousins, the ones who got all moral. Keep to the shadows, and maybe they'll scuttle away. And now we've got Chapter 6 has been completed, and that was it. Guffal's Archon Roche triumphantly. Kane consumed the perfervid. I returned here with a planet to raid at will, and with you my prize. We rarely capture a warlock, of course. Before I display you to high society, certain changes will be necessary. We can't have you calling down she who thirsts upon us here. He beckons to the flesh crafter, then pauses, looking at his arm as it jerks and freezes. His eyes bulge, then quickly settle, resigned. A subtle poison, intense, betrayed my intense, bypass my wards when I cut you. I stand from the chair, shedding the loose chains, warlock garb, and affected terror. My false tears, Duke Roche, a paralytic from a female Catachan devil barb. I bow deeply. His face is seized now, as Antic advances on him. Loxlove, superb disguise. Arcanic support, I presume. He is struggling to get his final words out. Who? Why, everyone, my dear. Too loud was your boasting against our dark muse. Too great was your success for your fellow Archons of the Cabal, and bringing a forbidden seer to Kamara. I bowed deeply, endangering us all. That was the justification for your fall, of course. A lifetime as a grotesque awaits. I allow Antic and his rest to take Roche so that he might be flesh-crafted into a humbler form. Then I seat myself into the warmth of his living chair, sample his crimson vapors. A fine vintage indeed. It is good to be back in Kamara. There you go. The fall, the ascent, and the fall. Yeah, this would have been a complicated thing to do because I only got 2 bases here. So if you were playing this campaign and then we're trying to get a total victory, what I'd recommend is pulling your guys back here, trying to get your forces together, and then you can kind of come up here, take out this base here. You may be able to also take out a second base, but you may just have to start pulling back then, and then hope, because these guys will all start swarming on you like a nest of angry bees, and you just keep pushing them back, because if you take a couple of these bases out, then this whole area will be open and you can come down and capture all these resource areas and you can keep making forces. So you'd want to take out the Tau first, because that will give you pretty much probably 60% of the map here, where you can just take everything under control. And then, depending, I assume, I'm not sure actually who would win this battle. I'm guessing probably the Eldar. So then you'd want to try to come down here, probably take these things, and then maybe take out a couple of these Eldar bases because they can't make new bases. So maybe take out 1 or 2 of them, and then come over here and assault the Tyranids. And then you probably maybe even consider doing like a pincer attack while they're all fighting in the middle. But that's how I would kill these guys, given the amount of units they have. Because as you can see, there's literally probably 500 plus units on the field still compared to our, like, I don't know, 40, 50. So, victory. You recline gratefully in the Archon's flesh-crafted chair and inhale deeply his fine crimson vapors. As you gaze through the skin dow at the impossible spires, a gang swoops past on jet bikes and skyboards whooping. Drukhari scourge, heads dangling from their saddles. In the oblate below the room, you hear Arcanic begin his ghastly work on Roche, and roars and screams invigorate you wonderfully. Ah, Kamara, how could a Drukhari be happy anywhere else? Alright. Man, what a pitiful total score here. We just couldn't. We were just getting beaten back by all these factions for most of the game, so we were just totally stalled. So, pretty abysmal play for us here. Definitely these guys were taken. Yeah, see, the Tyranids are losing the battle here. So, as I suspected, the Eldar are the ones that are winning, because I think the Tyranids are effectively getting tag teamed by both the Tau and the Eldar at this point in time. Economy, yeah, terrible. We kind of started to get it, and then they took the stuff back. So, that's not great. Military-wise, not great. Never even passed the Necrons. Research, we did max out our research, so that was fine, but yeah, we were nowhere near where everybody else was. I mean, we are just not even on the same game plan there. And in terms of details, ended up getting 24,500 resources, did 11,000 damage, took 3,000 damage, created a total of 63 units, compared to 1,000 of the Tau. Now, most of those are going to end up being drones because they just spam them, which is why using kind of weaker infantry can be good against the Tau, so you don't have to waste really powerful attacks on them. Tyranids have 600. What is this? The Space Marines had 135 before they died. Orcs had almost 400. Necrons had 222. Eldari has 515. Chaos had 191. Astra Militarum had 61. Admech, who got killed right away, only had 26. The Sisters had 103, and then we had 63. So, alright, well, that's going to be the close of our quest campaign. Next time we'll start a campaign to get a total map victory here to see what ending that gives us. That'll allow us to be able to focus more on those aspects and making our forces up instead of trying to focus on the quests, because you kind of have to have different focuses depending on what you're doing. I definitely need to work on this next map on making more bases, because we are definitely having resource starved, and given the limitations of our forces here, we're definitely going to need a lot of units to be able to fight a lot of these guys here, because we definitely struggle a little bit taking out heavily armored forces. So I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. If you did, please give my channel a like and subscribe to encourage me to post more content for you. Have a great day.